Welcome to the Not Just Ad Show, where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the Creator Economy for B2B. Okay, welcome to the show. So today I'm joined by Amelia Barth, who is a marketing manager in a biotech company. Amelia has a number of years' experience in the B2B space, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you. Thanks for joining us today, Amelia.
Thank you so much, Marcus. My name, as he said, is Amelia Barth, and I work at a company called Automated Engineering Services, which is a biotech company basically providing end-to-end solutions for biopharmaceutical companies and biomanufacturing companies. So that can include original equipment manufacturing, so making the equipment that's in the facilities. We do automation and integration work, so integrating all the different equipment and systems in the facilities that make the products. And then we also provide staffing services to these facilities. So if they are looking for engineers or very technical project managers, then they can turn to us and we will go ahead and fill those roles for them.
Great. Can you give us just just for the listeners, like a size of the company, what markets you're present in, and so on?
Yeah, so we are a small to mid-sized company, but we pack a punch. We have about 250 to 300 employees, and we are global, but primarily in the US region as well as the EU region. And we're starting to kind of branch out into the Middle East and Asia as well.
Great. So in terms of content, and you're a very B2B focused business, can you share a little bit in terms of, from a marketing perspective, how do you look at like identifying your buying committee, buying groups, and how do you piece all together when you have like a go-to-market marketing strategy in order to kind of engage and be on their radar, so to say, when it comes up for RFPs and so on like that? How do you approach things like that normally?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think the biggest part of, identifying your buyer groups is sitting down with senior leadership and your sales team too. You want to, in the past, I've run workshops with senior leadership, with our sales and our SMEs to really understand the real challenges. Sales brings that voice of customer. They bring the objections, the friction points, the objections. And but I go deeper, and I also bring in senior leaders and technical SMEs to basically understand what's happening behind the scenes in the industry, what sales can help and what they can't help, right? And that's really where that insight lies. So I think once I understand those pain points, I start to frame the content around the challenges and not so much the solutions, which is kind of odd to think of it that way. But I found that that's what really builds trust at the top of the funnel. So when you can articulate a buyer's problem better than they can, they really start to believe that you might have the answer. And I think that's really important in biopharma because trust comes from a combination of experience and data. And the content that really performs best for us is case studies and technical deep dives from our senior leadership. And, one of the most successful pieces we have on our website right now is just a deep dive with our VP of processing. And it's just kind of picking his brain and getting to know what he thinks the future is looking like. And I always try to validate any sort of content with my SMEs before I go ahead and publish. I'm not an engineer, and I'm really okay with that. But I always want that set of technical eyes, and because that detail matters, especially in biotech. And so, just last week, our global service lead caught a small but important little small language issue where we stated we wanted to clean parts, but she's like, actually, that needs to say autoclave. So that's just a little nuance that builds or breaks credibility. But Finally, I think the most important thing is just matching format to both the audience and the funnel stage. For top of funnel, we really lean into LinkedIn document posts, especially, whether that's a repurposed case study or Q&A format. They're just really highly engaging, especially for buyers who stay in that awareness and consideration phase, without really raising their hand ever.
Yeah. In LinkedIn, they call them lurkers, people that are
Yeah.
maybe not engaging, but then when they are in market, then they do. And some research that we did was about 95% of people are normally not in market. I don't know how that is in biotech, but like in some other sectors as well. But they're in that lurking stage of like they're consuming your content. They may not hit a like or engage with it, but they are consuming it in a way. So just to follow up on that then, in terms of when you have that senior level engagement, what do you find is working well in terms of, you mentioned document ads, but like for your sector in biotech, do you still find that there's a significant amount of engagement in terms of white papers and stuff like that? Or is other formats such as video or like audio visual and stuff, is that something that's getting more engagement, or do you still find traditional white paper is still getting a lot of engagement and people consuming that content?
So for us, we do get a lot of engagement from those heavier pieces of collateral. It just makes sense when I mentioned earlier that we make equipment, so they want to see the parameters. They want to see what that technical specification. Oh, my phone just.
Maybe
um,
pick it up. Hopefully it didn't break.
no, so I'm actually time lapsing this.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to post on mine. And I just like have it propped up against this like wall book situation. So that's embarrassing. Um,
No worries.
I appreciate it. But where was I? But so they really want to see the technical details. They really want to see what the pump is going to look like. They really want to see what the conductivity range is. They really want to see what like gases a bioreactor is going to monitor and control. So for us, that technical information is very important, but that's a little bit more down the funnel. That's closer
Yeah.
towards that decision phase, and that like I would say the bottom of the consideration phase when they're starting to really get serious. And I do see success with these documents and more like awareness pieces, those videos, that audio and the photos for the awareness stage. You're just saying like, hey, we're here, keep us top of mind. This is like what we're doing right now. I find a
Yep.
lot of value in those type of posts because one, I think that a lot of the larger biotech companies out there that are providing services that compete with ours don't get to do that as often because they're so large. So because we're a smaller company, I really try to take advantage of the fact that I can connect with so many people and get photos of people at a project in Denmark, get photos of, a customer support lead at in Singapore, kind of taking care of one of these bioreactors and kind of throw them up on LinkedIn and make people aware of what we're doing and that we're active in these regions.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. In terms of when you were saying about like the challenges and so on that they have, how do you normally pressure test those, like those type of pain points and stuff like that, with talking to sales VPs that you have in the company and so on? Like, are there any other touch points that you look at as well to kind of pressure test those assumptions?
Yeah, so we also look to customer feedback. I mean, every time we deliver a project and throughout the project as well, we have these open communications for our clients to provide us feedback. That's a very big kind of aspect of our automation and integration work as well, is we want that feedback so we can provide them with better resources or tighten up a timeline if they're saying that our timeline is lagging. So we do get to pressure test this because we have that open line of communication and this, what we like to say, is a partnership between our clients. We're not working for our clients, we are partnering with them. They can come to us and say, hey, this isn't working, and we'll proactively try to fix it or reactively try to fix it. We try not to get to the reactive stage, of course, and I think that's where a lot of our outreach, like our sales outreach, they can kind of pressure test these objections as well, because when I create content, or when they start to work off of the content or and the frameworks that I've created, they can get a success, a call, or a conversation, a response, or I mean, it'll go into someone's email bin, or it will never make the light of day. So I think that's where we get to pressure test these kind of pain points and objections with our customers.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. In terms of then, like when you're looking at buying groups and so on, and I know that it can be quite technical when you're talking to say certain people, but then there's obviously people that maybe are within that buying group decision that are like, we would call them hidden buyers, people that are part of the buying committee, but they may not be from a particular technical background. They could be maybe from legal or HR or whatever it may be. Do you also kind of consider your content strategy when you're focusing on those members as well? Or is it something that like maybe sales take care of? Or what do you think of from a marketing standpoint when in relation to those type of hidden buyers? Or if you come across them in your sector as well?
No, we come across them as well. Sometimes it can be in that influencer and decision making stage, actually, because a decision maker is really not. They're not a scientist. They're not on the operations floor. They may have been on the operations floor 20 years ago, but they have kind of grown up and they aren't so much in it right now. So they really want to hear, what is it going to do for the company? Is it going to speed up their go to market for a drug? Is it going to optimize their operations, help their facility become more efficient? So anything that I write, because I'm an engineer or not an engineer, I try to also lean away from the technical jargon, especially for these kind of more, I would say, bird's eye view type of content. We have that technical stuff, but that's really for the scientists and the people that are
Yeah.
making sure that the equipment is going to work how it needs to work to support their operators at the end of the day. But that's not so much the worry of a VP of, facilities. So they're really not going to be thinking, okay, they already think that this equipment's going to work. They have the influencers, they have the operators to tell them that this equipment is going to work. So that's not their concern. Their concern is making sure they have the experts to do it. So really we try to create some case studies that aren't so bogged down in the technical details, but like kind of sprinkle them through to like prove that, we know what we're doing. We understand what the process is and what you're dealing with, but we really tried to affect or focus on the effect of that expertise. Is that gonna, save a batch if you guys are down? Is this automation going to speed up your process? Are you going to create more batches in a year? So I think that's really kind of what we focus on is on the impact of what we're doing versus so much the technical details of the technical specifications, the spec sheets, the white papers. They're two completely different audiences.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned as well initially at the start of the conversation around like kind of C-suite, VP level, talking about certain pain points. How do you think that's evolved over the last number of years, especially like in B2B industries like biotech that you're in? Are you seeing now that there's more of an engagement in terms of not necessarily more of an engagement, but maybe more of a C-level partaking more in these conversations on digital platforms like LinkedIn, whatever else? How do you think that shift has come over the last few years? Are you seeing it come into biotech as well?
I haven't really seen it go into biotech too much, but I see it. I've been a part of different industries. I've been in financial services, I've been in telecommunications. So I'm aware of what is happening across the board, across industries. And I do see that C-suite and leadership, those types of roles, companies are looking for people who are active and have a voice and they want perspective, right? I mean, I could go into that on a whole other tangent, really, but I really do see that the future of hiring, especially for these like leadership roles, are people that are going to be vocal on their platforms, sharing their experiences that make them credible, sharing their insights, because that is just going to make the company more credible. Because when the company comes out with a product or a new feature, their C-suite is going to post about it, and it's gonna, make waves essentially. Like people are gonna buy into it. For an example, I just saw HubSpot. Um, they just integrated ChatGPT in their platform, and I'm connected with quite a few HubSpot people. And I mean, let me tell you, there are so many people posting about that integration. And it's people that are not just posting about it, but also interacting in the comments. They're not just, putting it like, great, ChatGPT is now in HubSpot. This is a great feature. They're actually having conversations. They're having conversations in the comments of their clients. So I think that this is going to be really important, and a very important shift for industry wide, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Are you seeing in terms of biotech, like, are there any? We see a lot with B2B creators in terms of tech companies. Obviously, it's very prevalent in terms of people working in different tech companies, fintechs as well. Are there any examples that you could share around biotech in terms of like CEOs or VPs that are very active, whether it's on LinkedIn or other platforms, kind of sharing their, even if it's on the industry or even if it's like their personal lives or anything like that you're seeing at the moment?
I mean, I don't have one specific person because I do follow a lot of people on
Yeah,
LinkedIn, but
yeah,
I feel like it's every day. I think with the increase of use of AI, I think that's also
yeah,
helping it.
yeah,
Um, which I mean, people that aren't comfortable sharing their thoughts and their opinions and their stories are, inputting it into ChatGPT and getting basically this output that says, hey, this is, here's a story in what you think is their voice. So, I can't say that I have one specific person that I would look to. I do know the HubSpot example, the VP of marketing, she globally, she used to work at LinkedIn actually, and so she posts about uh, posts really actively about what HubSpot is doing, and she has those comments in those conversations. Did that answer your question?
yeah. I think every sector is slightly different, but yeah, it did indeed. In terms of the biotech and marketing, what do you think is going to change in the future in terms of like it's a very B2B sector? I know that it's highly regulated as well. But from a marketing standpoint, where do you see it going over the next, say, 5 years or even in a shorter frame over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
So I think generally speaking, we're reaching like the saturation in B2B, especially in these high consideration spaces. So I think that with the growth and development of generative AI, there's more content than ever, but there's a lot of also distrust. Are people really telling the truth with their stories? Is it real? Just people are skeptical in general. And I think the major shift is going to be to storytelling through audio, visual, photos, video specifically, because it's really going to be hard to what am I saying? It's going to be hard to mimic a video. Like generative AI just isn't that good yet, right? So I think when people are doing things like podcasts or, creating their own videos, I think that is where you're going to get the realest version of a person. And I think that kind of having these for biotech specifically, I think it's going to be having these case studies kind of videos where you interview a engineer and talk about the project that they were working on, talk about the challenges that a client was facing and how they overcame those challenges. And then, go to an executive and they're just, talking to their phone about what they're seeing in the marketplace or what they learned at a new conference. It's those types of moments that I think are going to really shift for marketing within, as soon as 12 to 18 months, but definitely in the 5 years. I think that
Yeah.
generative AI is just so disruptive right now that people are going to be forced to move beyond text. They're going to be forced to move beyond blogs,
Yeah.
because generative AI can just create that for us.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose the point you mentioned is around kind of authenticity. Like a lot of it, we say B2B, but at the end of the day, it's like it's human to human, really. I think if you
You're
have
still selling
trust,
to a person.
yeah,
You're
exactly,
just
exactly.
instead of solving their personal problems, you're now solving their work problems.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. Um, Anything else then in terms of like for you as a marketer personally? Any other things that you're excited about in the future in terms of B2B marketing?
I think, I think the one of the biggest things that I'm excited for in B2B marketing is this kind of shift towards video. I'm starting to, try to keep up with that shift. I mentioned earlier that I'm recording this as a time lapse to essentially post onto my LinkedIn, but I think it's going to be really interesting to get the subject matter experts on LinkedIn. I think that we're going to come to a point where if you aren't posting on LinkedIn, your career isn't going to move forward it's going to be harder for your career to move forward. I won't say won't, but it's going to be more difficult. So I'm really interested in getting the opinions and the insights of these subject matter experts, the people that really like nerd out and kind of see how their thought process works, how they tackle a problem, what that looks like, and just kind of hearing their perspective in general. And then, just also making it real at the end of the day. It doesn't always have to be work. It could be an experience that, is personal, that kind of relates to work. And I think I'm just looking forward to the growth of storytelling on LinkedIn, not so much the I did this today and this is what I got. Like, really, like,
Yeah,
how did that actually benefit you? How did that actually benefit your client? And kind of getting that insight and that perspective.
yeah, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Amelia, thank you very much for joining the show. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
That's great.